Bolman and Deal have given us 4 frames, 4 perspectives for viewing organizations. But I'd like to ask a couple of questions. Are those 4 frames sufficient? Do we see behavior that's not accounted for by those 4 frames? From time to time, I get clues that the 4 frames don't account for everything that we see in organizations. Let me give you an example. The frame that seems to surprise most students is the political frame. I typically hear, "Well, that wasn't what I expected at all," or "I was surprised by how much I enjoyed the section on politics." Well, what's behind that surprise? Let's take a look. Bolman and Deal define politics as the realistic process of making decisions and allocating resources in a context of scarcity and divergent interests. The political frame views power as morally neutral. It's like electricity. It's a way to get things done. It's a reality, and we should all just learn how to use it. That all makes sense and seems very positive. But let me do a little experiment with you. What words spring to mind when I say office politics or corporate politics? Don't think hard about this. What's top of mind? Do these words have a positive or negative connotation? When I do this exercise with a live class, they offer words like backstabbing, old boys club, schmoozing, maneuvering, climbing the corporate ladder. Overall, it's a pretty negative bunch of words, and it doesn't sound like the political frame that Bolman and Deal describe. So what's up? Why the discrepancy? If we want to really know what's going on inside an organization, we need one more frame, the biblical frame. This frame gives us insight into what else is going on and how it influences all the other frames. What we learn from the biblical frame is that all people suffer from a fallen human nature, a nature that tends towards selfishness. Let's go back to the beginning, to the Garden of Eden, and take a look at the very first temptation. "You will not certainly die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." The original temptation isn't to eat the forbidden fruit. It's to be like God. The author is telling us something important about human nature. He's pointing out that as people, we desire to be God, not serve God. To be God means everything goes your way. You're the one to be obeyed. You are beyond question or harm. The author is pointing out that our nature is to want to be the one in control. If you have children, you know that there's a power struggle over who will be in charge, you or the child. Well, who taught your child to do that? The answer, of course, is no one. It's his or her nature. That's why we shouldn't be surprised when we find this passage in Mark's Gospel. Jesus called them together and said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be the slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." The biblical frame informs us that the disciples are following their natural fallen inclination to use power for their own good. That's the default mode. It can be unlearned, just as the disciples unlearned it, but it's not the first response. When power is used to promote oneself, it usually goes badly. That's why Abraham Lincoln said, "Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power." In the biblical frame, the ones who are fit to have power are the ones who will use it to serve others. That's the point of the passage in Mark's Gospel. Can you think of a time when Jesus used his power for his own benefit? I can't. He used it to serve others. He used it to serve us. It's the biblical frame that accounts for the discrepancy between Bolman and Deal's description of the political frame and what most people think of when it comes to office politics. In the biblical frame, the ultimate question is this: is the behavior I'm seeing an example of someone serving self or others? This question can be asked when observing the other 4 frames. Try it. For example, when analyzing an organization through the lens of the structural frame, you look at the structure, roles, procedures, and rules, and then ask yourself, whom do they serve? Are the elements of structure being used more to control people or to free them to serve one another and customers? Who benefits most from the management structure? Then there's the HR frame. Are the HR policies more about keeping the company out of court or helping employees grow and develop? What behaviors get rewarded? Whom do the policies serve the most? Or take the symbolic frame. Who is being served the most through the vision, values, status, and hero stories? What behaviors are held up as exemplary? Who is being served the most through the symbolic tapestry of the organization? Are every use of power, control, symbols, or rewards about grasping for godlike status? Well, certainly not. But to really understand what's going on in an organization, it's wise to ask, whom does this serve? Jesus said, I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Keeping the biblical frame in mind will help you be both discerning and compassionate.